All right, so this is the Conservation Commission meeting, so the minutes. Okay, so we'll get right on to the first and only thing that's listed on the agenda, and that's the discussion of the Vernal Pool Assessment Summary Report, submitted by LEC Environmental Consultants Incorporated. They're working for Douglas Kohl. And this is the wetland area that's at Northern Avenue and View Avenue. Okay, I hope that you guys all got this. Well, I know you did. Has everyone been there at some point? Yeah, okay, so you can know where it is. Brian, did you want to make summary comments or make some?
Yeah, I'll give a quick summary and try to keep it as brief as possible. Okay. Just turn it over to questions. All right.
Do you know who this is? This is Brian at LEC.
Back before, I was last before you on March 13th, I think, following review and approval of the protocol, we had started the survey, the assessment on March 18th under somewhat frozen ground and snow conditions. For the first week and a half, we were dealing with frozen and snow and ice conditions that prohibited the start of the survey. There were no reported amphibian activity in this region. And basically, it was just a little too cold and frozen to start setting the benchmarks, defining the areas that we specify that may function potentially as vernal pools. And I think I met Bruce and Paul out on March 25th, I believe it was. It was still pretty solid at that point in time. On March 28th, we did set the benchmarks in photographic stations and defined 5 distinct depressions that may function as vernal pool habitat. And basically, for the physical criteria, mainly to assess fluctuating water levels, we set a benchmark point within the center, deepest portion of each depression, and put stick-in flags around the perimeter of the max high water. And those were removed based on observed high water. Basically, the progression of that is when they started out, once snow and ice started to melt, once we received some significant rains, they were moving outward from that point. And again, I met Paul out at April 4th to confirm essentially the parameters of photographic stations, 5 depressions, and just the general protocol that we were going to implement. And just what I'll do now is just focus on the physical parameters, just the fluctuating water levels, and then dive into some of the biological information that we collected out there. You can see in the report that was submitted, we did provide a table of the 5 depressions and fluctuating water levels. You can see the data points were collected on March 28th and collected through May 28th, which comprises 2 continuous months. And basically, through each depression, I'll further define those later here, is that you'll see that all except for depression number 4 dried up before 60 continuous days. And I'll just make a comment now that depression number 4 was actually contiguous with the intermittent stream out there, Milliard Brook. And it was specifically selected because it was somewhat isolated from the main stream channel, meaning it didn't receive normal typical flow. It was somewhat protected, had appropriate water depth that may function as breeding habitat for amphibians. That area was the only area that continuously held water for 60 days. All the other 5 depressions, all 4 depressions, did dry up over that period. Number 1 is located in the southernmost portion of the site and is a small depression that receives direct overflow from the stream. Groundwater is relatively high in that location. However, the surface waters in that confined depression were entirely dependent upon overwash from the stream. Depression number 2, or study area number 2, received superficial runoff from the forested wetland system and had both an inlet and an outlet. However, surface waters were contained in a loosely confined basin or depression. Same can be said for study area number 3. And study area number 5 was actually just somewhat of a small little bathtub within the isolated vegetated wetland that was a very small depression that held water, but did in fact dry up prior to 60 continuous days. And just to touch upon the biological criteria that we did encounter, in study area number 1, we did find fingernail clams. Study area number 2, we did find fingernail clams and amphibious air-breathing snails. Number 3, just fingernail clams. 4 was both fingernail clams and amphibious air-breathing snails. Number 5, we only found 1 fingernail clam and amphibious air-breathing snails. And just basically to summarize, the results of the vernal pool assessment do conclude that the 5 depressions do not meet the certification criteria established by National Heritage for vernal pools, for vernal pool habitat. And given the fact that these are not necessarily confined depressions, most of them have either an inlet or an outlet, and the fact that they do not hold water for 60 days as specified under the ordinance and under the Wetlands Protection Act, they do not function as vernal pools and cannot be certified as such. And basically at this point in time, we're looking to confirm the assessment and request to terminate it at this point in time. So I'll just turn it over to questions right now.
I think there's one key point you might mention, which is that there are no amphibians.
Oh, yes. There were no obligate species encountered, vernal pool obligate species that were encountered. No amphibian activity, no amphibians of any kind on the property, no signs of any breeding activity, which is something typically you would encounter in vernal pool habitat situations. Thanks.
Does anyone have any questions about this report, about what statements?
And just at this point in time, we will be submitting the data to National Heritage, which is a requirement. We received the scientific collection permit application, or permit to do this work, and we will submit the data to confirm that they do not function as vernal pools, not certifiable.
Well, I'm a little bit surprised.
Yeah, the species we did encounter are facultative species. However, they are commonly found in most forested wetland systems that have depressions that hold a little bit of water, but also found in stream beds, things of that nature. And Natural Heritage is actually, over the next year, will be revising their certification criteria to kind of firm up some of those loose ends. Focus more on obligate species as a distinct barometer of vernal pool habitat.
And what did, I don't remember the person's name, the representative from HILA, did they issue the report?
Dan Wells of Highland, we met him out on site on 2 occasions. Definitely left it open for more site visits which he didn't feel were warranted. He did review the report, we did copy him on it, and he agreed with our conclusions in an email that I think we could provide to you if
I just wondered if you.
Yes.
You do have it?
I don't, but I don't know if Bruce did.
Dan's comment back, no? Oh, okay.
We can forward that.
It was pretty clear. You don't have a copy, do you?
I never got the email.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I got it, Brian got it, apparently.
So, Steve, Adam, do you have any questions you guys want to ask these guys?
I think you folks got it too.
Yeah.
Dan Wells, who works with Brian, what's his last name?
Windmiller.
Windmiller. Did say I think the phrasing is something like, I agree with the conclusions of the report. I think it was presented and conducted in a professional fashion. We will forward you all that email.
Okay. Did you guys have any questions about
I haven't seen the report, but if you have, then
statements? Well, I meant even just what Brian Manning said.
The whole thing?
that was the whole package.
right.
All right. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't have anything to say.
So,
Bruce?
I'm just wondering, did you find the fingernail clamps and the snails in the same pools?
Essentially, the snails were found in every depression.
Okay.
The snails were found in 2, 4, 5. Those are 3 separate families.
Did you also get there's a letter from Molly Hale, who we did invite out to the site.
It did that, I believe.
Yeah.
You guys sent that out last? So we talked about it last, we didn't talk about it, but I sent it out for the last meeting anyway.
We copied
So
that.
she
again, but it
agreed
was the
that
same.
these were not,
And since that's where the ball started rolling, I felt it appropriate to bring it back to the same place.
All right. Bruce, did you have any other questions for Brian or Doug?
I mean, I think the only real loose end that's out there is rainfall has to, the way it's written, the way the bylaw is written, rainfall has to continue to be 75% of average through October 15th. Certainly has been thus far. My only comment would be perhaps the bylaw should have, although it was highlighted bylaw and we all did it, perhaps it should be written so that it more closely reflects the rain during the vernal pool season rather than the whole growing season. That's up to you folks for the next time. Can't write anything perfectly.
right.
Okay.
But all of these pools are dry except for number 4,
And that's that one that's about as big as half this table.
right? Connected to the, so it has a permanent flowing outflow basically.
Unless the street.
There's a permanent connection.
Permanent.
There's no real flow with it, it's just connected superficially.
You know, I've seen some very, very diverse and rich vernal pools that have inlets now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I would even think that if it did afford adequate habitat, vernal pool habitat, I think Natural Heritage would be inclined to certify those pools.
I know, I'm not disputing their
Yep.
opinions, but I'm just saying, I know that the classic vernal pool has no outlets.
Yeah, those are pretty good.
Yeah. Just so you guys know. All right,
We
so.
have certified pools that have outlets.
Yeah, yeah,
Our
no,
pool.
Oh, yeah,
I've
Well,
seen
so-
some good ones.
Right.
So,
But otherwise, it looks straightforward.
yeah. Okay. I don't have any other questions or anything. And no one else does. So, they're just gonna submit it and Bruce, is there anything else that we should discuss about this at this time?
Well, we should vote, if the commission feels comfortable, to accept this or not accept it. And as far as I understand, this was part of the request for determination that came to us, and we said that we would approve the request for determination and issue a determination of applicability for the wetlands, but because all of the vernal pools were located within the wetlands, that we would further study the vernal pools and then either decide to change the determination of applicability or keep it as it is and issue a note that says no vernal pools were, or a vote anyway, which would be the same, that no vernal pools were found or that vernal pools were found. So I believe
Your bylaw, yes.
I don't think the request had any mention of vernal pools in it.
The original one didn't, because we didn't, when we submitted it, we didn't, no, Molly hadn't been out there.
Right.
And nobody saw it.
But it was approved by the commission
Right.
as only wetlands, and that we would further discuss vernal pools, and that request would only be valid for the wetlands, unless if there were vernal pools, there would be a new delineation, including vernal pools, right?
I think there was no discussion of a new delineation. I think it was just that we needed to, they were not necessarily saying that there were or weren't vernal pools, and specifically said we needed to go back in the spring and look for the term.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my recollection. I don't think there's
Basically what I'm saying is nothing needs to be
Nothing
revised, because it's been approved already for the wetlands, and if the commission votes to accept this, and which says there are no vernal pools, then that would be the end of the delineation on site. Right. At this point.
Paul,
Yes.
speaking to a point that Doug made earlier, do you need to wait until October 15 because of the rainfall requirement in the bylaw?
Actually, it says during the study period. So if they agree that the study period is over, that's what the bylaw says, the ordinance. So if they agree that the study period is over as of May 28th, then the rainfall data collected is fine. That's the word.
Common sense tells me I don't have to wait, really.
It says demonstration that surface water was present for fewer than 60 consecutive days during the growing season. And then it,
March through October.
and then it says March 15th through October 15th of any years, provided that rainfall during the period of observation was at least 75% of the average over 20 years for that period in Northampton. So it would be up to the commission to determine whether the period of observation is over at this point or not. But if we have dry pools after 60 days,
Yeah, during the breeding season.
Then it doesn't seem necessary to continue the report, or the observation period, in my opinion, but it's your choice.
No, I can tell you if it makes it bureaucratically easier, October 15th isn't going to change my life one way or the other, as long as you're comfortable with where we are. And I guess what we're asking for is not to have to continue to go out on an every 2-week basis to continue to observe what is most of the time dry. Sure, after rain.
So basically you're saying on October 16th you'd submit a rainfall data to us, but I don't think that's necessary.
I mean, they're not going to breed anytime after.
No, hey, that's correct.
Yeah, I think it's okay to, I think we can accept the report. I'm comfortable with it there as it is. Do you guys have any other comment about that?
I just wanted to read the bylaw again.
Oh, did you get it here? the first ordinance, getting the ordinance changed was such a long, drawn-out process that I'm afraid to even go back.
I have a hunch if you did something to just make it cleaner language, nobody would say two bits about it. But I could be dead wrong.
Cleaner is so valuable. Yeah, I think that 75% refers to the period of observation, and I'm comfortable that the study has been endorsed by ILA's biologist as well as strongly. So I don't feel like there's any need to extend the period of observation, so the rainfall data that we have right now is adequate.
And they used years prior to that, to come up with the need. Any other comments, guys? Okay, I need a motion. Would anyone like to make a motion to accept the LEC report on the vernal pool assessment on Northern Avenue and View?
Dated June 5th, 2008.
That particular.
Right, okay. Okay, any other discussion as we last bit? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, all right, thank you very much.